All right, as I said, this week we're going to start off with things going on here in Georgia. And we're going to start with this. What is that stink in Coweta County, Georgia? Now before we, hurt the feelings of Coweta residents, we are not poking a hole in the county in general, but we are focused on some things that occurred there this week that we think need to be known and need to be understood by folks across Georgia. So bear with us and let me explain. So after weeks of folks raising concern about Brant Frost, in this case, Brant Frost V, continuing to be the GOP chair in Coweta County, after he had apparently claimed he was going to resign and yet did not, and apparently they've been maneuvering to somehow maintain control, it appears, of Coweta County, yet have him move on from that GOP chair role in Coweta. Well, that finally happened this week. They held a meeting, and in fact, Brant Frost resigned, but almost unbelievably was virtually immediately then placed on the 3rd District GOP committee. So he's not out of leadership in the GOP. This is a gentleman that has been part of First Liberty Building and Loan. He's being investigated by the Secretary of State and now by the Ethics Board, apparently, for a number of dozens, I am told, complaints regarding a PAC that he was in charge of with the GRA, and yet remains steadfastly stuck in the Georgia GOP in a position of leadership. Why would that be? What type of arrogance does it take to maneuver this kind of thing? And before we move on and talk about that and what happened during this meeting, we will address the person that is now taken on GOP chairmanship of Coweta. Is it an improvement or perhaps not? So the Noonan Times produced actually a very good synopsis of the meeting and talked about what happened and what didn't happen. So let me go ahead and I'm going to read this to you because I know this is small on the screen. The meeting held at Coweta Community Church was marked by sharp disputes over bylaws, proxy votes, and transparency, and at times descending into open heckling. Despite being labeled as open to the public, reporters from the Noonan Times-Herald and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution were asked to leave, with one photographer refused entry altogether. The Coweta GOP hired 2 off-duty deputies from the Coweta County Sheriff's Office to provide security. Deputies told the audience that note-taking and recording were prohibited. Why would that be? To prevent any evidence from coming out from the meeting, perhaps? We don't know. And one deputy ordered a spectator to delete a photo taken on her phone. Frost, who presided for much of the night, repeatedly interrupted members with sarcastic remarks about literacy and other jabs that drew groans and boos from the audience. At one point, he told a voting member, "Are you going to keep talking or pretend to be a victim? And it makes you look less than intelligent." Now, Georgians know what leadership is, and they know what it's not. That's not leadership, obviously. So it drew lots of response online. Here's one from What Matters in Georgia. The Frost family's grip on power comes at limitless cost. A racket built on silencing opposition, clandestine meetings, enforcers, minions, and proxies. Manipulations continue. Coweta GOP chair resigns, immediately lands a district seat. Sister Katie Frost sits as 3rd District chair. So as he landed a seat on part of her committee. Many, many concerns here. And for reasons that defy logic, these people continue to hang on to power. You'll recall that in past weeks, we have raised the alarm about Katie Frost continuing to be the chairman of the 3rd District GOP in Georgia. And both she and her mother, Krista Frost, still occupy roles on the state committee of the GOP in Georgia. And so through all of this, they've issued no explanation about how, given what's come out about First Liberty Building and Loan and the $140 million Ponzi scheme as described and charged by the SEC, why they continue to believe that they are justified in maintaining those leadership positions in really all of these or any of these GOP groups. Astoundingly, Josh McKoon apparently still allows Katie Frost, who was an active member of the First Liberty Building and Loan, according to her own description of her roles. He still allows her to occupy a position of chairman of a financial oversight committee for the entire Georgia GOP. How could that be? Well, we don't know, but this from AJC Politics. From Ponzi fallout to party power, Frost dynasty clings to the Coweta GOP. They're speaking in part because the person that was elected to now be the chairman of the Coweta GOP seems to be nothing more than a Frost family supporter and minion, and perhaps a McKoon supporter at the same time. McKoon's own comments regarding this have been basically silent regarding any of this since he announced about a month ago that he had accepted Brant Frost V's resignation from the from the state committee, and that he would be removing himself from the Coweta GOP, but nothing about the other members of the family that continue to maintain these positions. Here is AJC's own read on what happened. Brant Frost 5 faces dozens of state ethics complaints accusing a political action committee he led of illegally influencing Georgia elections. His father, Brant Frost IV, has publicly apologized for orchestrating what authorities say was a $140 million Ponzi scheme. Yet on Thursday evening, Frost V presided over a tense Coweta County GOP meeting without a word about the collapse of the family business, First Liberty Building and Loan, or the hundreds of investors regulators say were built out of their life savings. And you can read the remainder for yourself. As we continue to learn more about First Liberty Building and Loan, one of the things that we will not leave alone is the fact that in previous articles, both from the AJC and others, it's been identified that the targets for the Frost family to approach and hopefully get money to invest in First Liberty were largely those of the folks associated with the Georgia GOP or other GOP members, or folks of faith. And in fact, the Frost family claimed that they were of devout faith. Often there's a video in a number of cases of Brant the Fifth quoting what he said was scripture that I'm not sure we recognize as scripture, and claiming to be devout people of faith. Yet how could people of faith target others of legitimate faith, we believe, and get them to invest in a scheme which looks like it may have cost these people potentially all their life savings in some or all some cases, pardon me, not all cases. And now we learn that this process may have been creating issues across now 38 states. So where will this end? Well, we don't know. The receiver continues to work to regather as much money as possible for the victims. And we hope and pray that as much as possible will be recovered, and that in some form, these people will be able to recoup their money so that their lives are not unduly impacted, potentially for the